Good afternoon, and welcome to Consular Conversations Live, here with the U.S. Embassy in Kingston, Jamaica. Joining me here today are my colleague, Maureen Smith, and Jillian Carotis, the Divisional Director of Industrial Relations and Services, as well as Andrea Miller-Stennett, the Director of Manpower Services, both at the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Before we jump into our conversations today, I just want to welcome our audience. Remember that you can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at US Embassy JA. Today is our first Consular Conversations Live performance of the year, and we're going to be focusing on the H2 worker program. Our next session will be at 1 p.m. the standard time on February 21st, and it will focus on the Federal Voter Assistance Program. So if you're interested in that topic, remember to tune in at 1 o'clock local time on February 21st. So I just want to extend a warm welcome. Welcome, Jillian, Andrea. Wanted to ask the two of you first and foremost, could you tell us a bit about your roles and your portfolios at the Ministry of Labor?
Thank you, Andrew, and it is such a pleasure to be here. And this is actually the start of the H2 season as well for us, so it is quite timely. The role of the ministry generally is to provide employment services, but my role in particular is in relation to the policy that supports the growth and development of the H2 programs, especially here with the US, and also to protect the integrity of the program and to look at certain trends and what we can do to make the experience of our Jamaicans traveling to the US much better. And obviously to work along with your embassy to ensure that we have a very, very successful program each year.
Thank you. And Andrea, could you tell me a bit about your portfolio?
Yes, I have responsibility for the overseas employment programs and the monitoring of employment agencies and the local program as well. Well, in terms of the overseas employment programs, we, Ms. Koda just spoke about the H2 programs. So my role is to really coordinate the management of the recruitment and processing and dispatch, everything that goes along with that program, all of those procedural issues and having to do with policy as well. So we work together very closely. Also, in terms of the monitoring of employment agencies, that is very critical, especially with respect to, again, the H2 programs. So my role devolves around those aspects.
Thank you very much. And since you are the expert in procedures as it relates to the H2 program, could you please walk us through the process of applying to work in the United States as a Jamaican?
Okay, well, persons are interested in the hospitality program, and that is the H2B program. They can come to the ministry. We do pre-select and process persons, dispatch them and place them under the H2B program in the US. Persons can also check with eligible private employment agencies, and we do have their information up on our website. Persons can check with them also if they're interested in proceeding on the H2B program. Persons can, in terms of the ministry's process, persons can drop off a resume at any parish office island-wide. It must be a detailed, updated resume, showing your latest, where you've worked, your experience, your education and training, as well as your qualification for the program. We ask that persons also submit a resume through the PR unit. They can do so through the Ministry's Public Relations unit at PR unit at MLSS.gov.jm.
Thank you, Andrea.
For the agricultural program, we accept recommendations from several avenues. We accept recommendations from our members of parliament, particularly those out in the rural areas. We accept recommendations from agricultural schools, from our trade union movement, other civic organizations out there. Persons can also write to the minister and to the permanent secretary. We also have an email address that persons can contact us at the ministry if they're interested. They can just contact that, write to that email address, and let us know their name, talk about the interest, talk of their interest, give us the idea that they're interested, let us know, and give us their name and contact details, and we will get back to them by the next step. I think you may have the
yes, for the audience out there
Right.
watching right now, if
Right.
you're interested in getting into contact with the Ministry of Labor, you can look in the comments section,
Right.
and you can go ahead and contact by email the address that you see
Right. Let me
populated
just say what
below.
it is. It's overseas.employment@mlss.gov.jm. So that's another avenue.
Thank you, Andrea. We're going to get back to questions for the Ministry of Labor, but first I want to switch over to my colleague, Maureen Smith, who's the Deputy Consul General here at the U.S. Embassy in Jamaica and oversees all visa programs. So Maureen, welcome again.
Thank you.
And I wanted to start off broadly by asking, what is the benefit of the H2 visa program? Could you tell us a bit more about why it exists?
Yes, absolutely. So the H2A program is for agricultural workers, temporary workers, to go to the United States for 6 months to a year on each visa. And that is precisely what it says, agricultural jobs in the United States. It might be to plant or to care for or harvest crops in the US. This is a really important program, both the H2A and the H2B that Andrea already spoke of. These are really important programs for both countries. For the United States, we absolutely need these temporary workers in order to help us with our food supply in the United States. And it's also a really important program for Jamaica because the workers, through their employment in the US, are able to send back remittances to family members here that a lot of families use to send kids to school or build a house or buy land. So it also helps the country of Jamaica. And if I may speak about the H2B program that Andrea already spoke of, that is for non-agricultural workers. So there are some different types of jobs that you can go on as an H2B worker. It might be in the hospitality industry that Andrea talked about. Also, there are jobs in landscaping or at amusement parks or at restaurants, hotels, that's part of hospitality. But so there's a different range of jobs that you can go to in the United States.
Thank you, Maureen. And just for the Jamaican perspective, I wanted to ask my Ministry of Labor counterparts, what do you see as the benefit to Jamaican workers for participating in the program?
Well, the Jamaican worker that participates in the program, and we have had persons on the H2A agricultural that have traveled for 40 years, 30 years. And for the average Jamaican worker, it is a serious economic benefit. They have been able to educate their children straight through to university. Many of these persons have been able to, as you said, Maureen, build their homes. They have been able to, in my mind, build their communities. I regard the workers on the hospitality and the farm work program, H2A and B, as our unsung heroes. They have really gone across the border and across boundaries to ensure that the communities, the rural communities in large part that they're from, continues to develop. And we recognize the impact that it has had on the destination country, the United States. But it also has given the opportunity for those farmers in particular to come back with new information in terms of their agricultural practices, the use of machinery. So we see that many of the workers that come back much more prepared to advance their own businesses as farmers. And similarly, the hospitality workers, We're known for our hospitality in Jamaica. The smiles and warmth of the Jamaican worker has really helped many of the employers in the hospitality sector in the United States. And we're very happy that we're able to do this continually. And those workers, when they return, I see that they are also very interested in helping the other colleagues in the hotel and tourist industry in Jamaica to improve. And they're seen as the trailblazers. Everybody wants to be on the programs. And I'm happy that we're having the conversations today, because we have to open for persons to understand what is expected of them, the softer skills and the attitude that is expected of the workers when they travel to the United States.
Thank you, Jillian. And I just want to highlight what was said by both you and Maureen, that this is a partnership between our nations, between the United States and Jamaica. And the effort and the work involved is split between your ministry and the U.S. Embassy. To the audience out there, remember, if you have visa-specific questions, please don't direct them to the Ministry of Labor, because they don't adjudicate the visas ultimately involved. If you have any questions about recruitment or other requirements to apply, that is not handled by the U.S. Embassy. And so the visa unit at the U.S. Embassy is not best equipped to address those questions. Those questions should go to the Ministry of Labor instead. For those who have joined us just now, please look in the comments section and you will see email addresses that you can reach the Ministry of Labor and Social Security at if you have further questions or application submissions for the H2 program. Now, because we want applicants to be able to use this program effectively and to not be burned by unfortunate experiences, I have read recently in the news that there is a rising incidence rate of certain scams perpetrated on interested applicants. Could I please ask my Ministry of Labor counterparts to perhaps expand a bit on what kind of scams are seen?
Yes, from time to time we get wind of scams that are taking place out there. We have persons selling application forms. We get that sometimes, even though the ministry doesn't have an application form. We get word that their application forms out there being sold for a lot of money. We get word that persons are paying over huge sums of money to go on both H2 or H2B programs. Let me just state that the ministry is the only entity that is authorized to place agricultural workers under the H2A program, the only entity. Private employment agencies are not supposed to do that, and this is in the regulations. So if you hear of persons out there having agricultural work overseas, telling persons that they can access work overseas, that is not true. So persons who hear this need to get in contact with the ministry. We do have our private employment agencies that are authorized. The ministry grants them a license. Those that are eligible, they have to satisfy a number of conditions before they can access this license. And this license is supposed to be up and displayed in their place of business. They are supposed to have a physical location that's a requirement by law. So, a lot of the persons who get scammed tend to be doing business online in the online space. And that is where a lot of these things, you don't see what's going on. You don't see persons. You don't get to talk to persons face to face. And sometimes persons are asked to send money to bank accounts or through remittance agencies. And persons need to know that they have to be wary when they're asked to do those things. And, those are sort of red flags. And we're just asking persons to get in touch with the ministry when they hear of these things and let us know what is happening. Many persons end up paying over these large sums of money before they make contact with the ministry. Up to this morning, we had to put out a release about a scam that is going on. It's really important for persons to be cautious and to understand that, their vulnerability is really at stake many times when they're out there in this space trying to navigate around, getting access to employment from, sources that are not fruitful sources. Those sources are not really the best sources. Let me put it that way. So we really would want for persons to come to the ministry. We have a WhatsApp hotline. I believe you have it up as well, that they can call us when something doesn't seem right, when they're in doubt. So we're it's really important that we get this message out there that persons need to contact us. Whenever you see a red flag, it's probably whenever something clicks in your mind that, okay, something doesn't sound right here, it is probably wrong. So please do some checks. Do not just blindly pay over monies, without knowing what you're doing. Many persons are out there, many vulnerable job seekers are out there just, getting caught up in these scams.
If I might add as well, we have to also remind persons, as Andrea said, you have to do your own due diligence, and you are to be informed of the terms and conditions of any contractual arrangement that you will be entering in prior to leaving the island for any work on the private employment agency arranged jobs. And we are here with you, the embassy, because we believe that this is one of the primary concerns of the program. And together, I think that persons will recognize that the authentic or authenticity of any advertisement can be double checked using our website, as Andrea mentioned, to look at the licensed employment agencies, and also your website and information to know what are the procedures. So we really urge all Jamaicans, all Jamaican job seekers, to be extra vigilant and to contact the entities here by reason of our website and any other information that we put out, so that they can become more comfortable and help us to also reduce the levels of scamming or scams, because we have seen that persons are using social media. So we have gone social media, and that is why we have a WhatsApp line. So we are open 24 hours, 7 days a week, if you need to check with us on the authenticity of a job posting.
Thank you. And yes, in the comment section, the WhatsApp number is there, as well as a link to the MLSS website and the overseas employment list of authorized agencies. So that link is there as well. When you click on it, it opens up into a PDF document, and you can see there the list, the names and contact information of all of those agencies. So you can refer to that in the comment section of this post.
Thank you. I want to just follow up quickly on what was said, that a lot of these scams happen online. Please make sure that you visit mlss.gov.jm for the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. I'll repeat that again. That is mlss.gov.jm for the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and jm.usembassy.gov for any visa-related questions. You should not be communicating with anyone with a .com email address. You should not be communicating with any private person with a Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo account. These would not be representatives of either the Ministry of Labor or the U.S. Embassy. One thing I want to confirm with my Ministry of Labor counterparts: should anyone be sending bank information or any application-related materials through the WhatsApp channel?
No.
Okay, so anyone communicating to you purporting to be from the Ministry of Labor, asking any of those questions on social media channels, is not acting with authority from the ministry.
The ministry's authority.
Thank you. Thank you very much. For those who have joined us recently or have been tuned in, please note that we are 20 minutes into what will be approximately a 1-hour program today. We are extending our usual time because we have our excellent guests from the Ministry of Labor here today. So we're going to continue with some prepared questions, but then towards the end of the session, we will be doing open Q&A with the audience. So please note the resources that are already in the comments section, but feel free to pose any questions you have regarding the H2 program in the comment section on any channel that you are tuned into right now. So our next question is going to be about the difference between the H2A and the H2B program. Could you briefly talk about that difference again? I know we've roughly covered it so far. And the follow-up question I have to you, Andrea, is you mentioned that there's these licenses that private organizations can get. Is that specific to the H2A program? And could you please explain more?
Okay, so H2B, as Maureen had indicated, it really denotes the agricultural program. It's the U.S. agricultural program. This is so when persons are interested in farm work.
H2A.
H2A,
Yes.
farm work, not hospitality work. When we speak about H2A, we talk about persons going overseas to work on farms. As Maureen said, harvesting, it could be a nursery, flowers, where people tend flowers, anything having to do with farm work, field work, actually working in the field. For H2B, of course, we're talking about persons who may want to work in a hotel setting, an amusement park, non-agricultural work, any sort of operation like that, where not having to do with field work at all. Because I know that persons confuse the two of them sometimes. So I just want to make the distinction that you have farm work and you have the non-farm work. You have work in a hotel or an amusement park or a restaurant or something like that. Two different programs, right?
And the licensing, does that apply to a specific one?
This has to do now with as I stated before, the ministry is the only entity that places persons overseas in agricultural work or farm work. The ministry also has the authority to grant licenses to persons who qualify to place persons on the H2B program. So we have a number of licensed agencies which are able to place persons on the H2B program, the non-agricultural program in the US.
So if I'm applying to work on a farm abroad at a private agency in Jamaica, should red flags go up?
Right, because you should not be applying to an agency for that. Only the ministry does that.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Andrea. Quick follow-up here. Are there any age restrictions to be eligible for either the H2A or H2B program?
Well, based on feedback from our employers, most employers tend to want persons to come to work with them for the first time between ages, say, 21 to 45, in terms of agricultural work. Okay. Most employers work with that. For hospitality work, it's a little different. It's a little lower. You can go 21 to 40. Some employers will probably say, they'll go over a little bit over 40, but we tend to work closely with our employers when it comes to the age.
Okay, yes. Thank you. That's very helpful. Maureen, I will turn to you to ask this visa policy specific question. Is there a cap to how many H2 visas can be issued per year?
For the H2A program, the agricultural workers, there is no limit. So we can process as many cases as come to us. For the H2B program, there is a limit. It's quite high. I know that we'd like it to be higher. Yes, but the H2B for non-agricultural workers is limited.
I did hear that it's split between seasons. So does that mean that if the limit is reached in the spring, could I still apply in the fall?
Yes, people can still definitely find out the information, fill out forms, try and become a part of the program. And perhaps it will be possible, even if we've met the limit, that we'll be able to issue the visas. So the public really doesn't have to worry about that so much. We would encourage them to follow the correct channels here in Jamaica. If you're an H2A, it's directly with the Ministry of Labor. If you're an H2B, it's with one of the authorized agencies in Jamaica.
Or the ministry. We also place persons under the H2B program as well.
Okay.
If I may follow up as well, a challenge that we recognize is that oftentimes persons think that the recruitment is ongoing. And we just want to indicate that for the H2A program, primarily we do the recruitment February, March for the season.
So it's timely that we're doing this program.
That's
Yes,
correct.
it is.
So persons may go to our parish offices or even the members of parliament and they say, oh, I want to go on the farm work program, but it is August. They should know that it is not going to be possible for them to be recruited for that particular year because the period of recruitment would have already passed.
Yes.
And I find that sometimes it becomes very difficult for the parish offices and even the members of parliament to explain this because, you know, persons have the expectation that it should be ongoing and they feel that there's something that they're not being told. But we just want to assure persons that we try to keep the open communication. So we will accept information submitted, but it really is not going to be processed until the recruitment period, which in the H2A case, it's normally February to March. And the hospitality, we will sometimes do a second recruitment, sometimes in October,
Okay.
right, for the winter season.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a public service announcement to those of you watching right now who have family or friends that might not be tuned in, may not have internet coverage where they are. Make sure that you inform them that February and March is the peak recruitment season and that late applications will likely not result in work in that particular season. So visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, to learn more information and get your application materials submitted in time. So what if I already have an H2 visa, Maureen? Do I need to come in for an interview to get it renewed?
Most applicants do not need an interview in order to renew the visa. There are a few applicants here and there that maybe they got their first visa during COVID, and maybe in the near future we need to take their fingerprints. But the vast majority of applicants we can issue without an interview.
Okay, that's great. Now, what if an applicant already has an H2 visa, but their family members want to join them? Can their family members join?
Yes. Legally married spouses can apply for what we call a derivative visa, H4 category, and minor children, that's children under age 21, can also apply to be a derivative applicant and go as well.
Okay, but that involves an application. There's no automatic issuance of visas for family members.
Correct.
Okay. So please keep that in mind. If you have family members that plan to travel with you, you do need to submit applications for each person that is seeking to travel to the United States. The next question I have is, again, visa policy related. Let's say that I have been approved for an H2 visa, and the company that petitioned for me, they're great, but I found a better one. Can I just go work on the farm next door because I think that job is better once I'm in the United States?
That is a great question. You cannot just go and work for a different employer. You would need to do what in the US, what's called an adjustment of status, so that you're on the same visa type, but with a different employer. It takes a little while, so a lot of people choose not to do that. So it's best to stay with the employer. When you apply for the visa, you should know the type of work that you're going to perform. You should know the location where you're going. So for example, the city and state in the United States where you're going, you should know ahead of time how much you will be paid. You should know ahead of time in the case of the H2As, especially what the living arrangements are. So there's a lot of information that you should know ahead of time. And you bring up a really good point, Andrew, because we have a lot of information that we give to the applicants on the rights and protections, because if you go up on an H2A or H2B visa, you have the same rights and protections as U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents living in the United States and working in the U.S. We call it Wilberforce, and we also are putting the link to that in the comment section. And so, for example, in the U.S., workers have the right to unionize. Workers have the right to be treated well. They have a right to decent living conditions. They have a right to the wage that they were promised. And if you arrive in the US and your employer, for example, changes drastically the type of work that you're going to be doing and the location. So let's say you think you're going to work at a hotel in Texas, and instead they say, well, no, you have to go and pick apples in New York. That is something that you should be reporting to the liaison officer in the United States that works for the embassy or the consulate of Jamaica. And also when we give information to the applicants about their rights and protections in the United States, there's a hotline that they can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to report any possible labor violations or allegations.
Okay. That's very helpful. And I think that this is a good time for me to ask Andrea at the Ministry of Labor, can recruiters charge a recruitment fee?
When it comes to the H2 programs, this is a big no-no. Very, very, very big no-no. We work with the employer pays principle here. So the employer pays the recruiter, not the applicant. The applicant doesn't pay a recruitment fee. No. It's a big no-no.
So just want to highlight, if you are going through either the H2A or H2B program and suddenly you're handed a bill showing a recruitment fee, the red flags should go up and you should immediately reach out on the WhatsApp hotline that's provided in the comments section.
And if I may add, there is, of course, the visa application fee. And so each applicant would need to pay that.
Yes.
And sometimes applicants choose to pay a service to fill out, for example, their online application form. We always recommend against it because it's better to fill out your own form so that you know that the answers that are on the form are correct and not either inflating your qualifications or misrepresenting completely the answer. So sometimes some services may charge fees, but those are services that the applicant is choosing to hire someone to help them with it. I don't know if you wanted to speak a little bit about that.
I know that there are some recruiters who may have a training facility as well. So persons, they may charge a fee for persons to be trained in certain skills, or as you said, maybe they're doing transportation, they're providing transportation services in terms of moving with the passports to get the visas sorted out and everything. So they'll charge probably a little add-on fee for that. But when it comes to a recruitment fee, no.
And just to follow up on what Maureen said, I think we've all played what in the US is known as broken telephone, where, your story may be based on biographical facts, but by the time through derivatives it's told and retold, it may come out completely different. So, I tell Maureen that I'm a farm worker going to pick apples in the United States. By the time she tells Andrea, who then retells Jillian, it might sound that I'm an astronaut going to Mars, and that could be an issue when you're there speaking to the consular officer who's adjudicating your visa, because you need to make sure that all the information there is provided factually correct and reflects your true intent to travel.
Right.
So then I have one last question. I do hear that the Ministry of Labor and Social Security has liaison officers in the United States to assist H2 visa holders. Could you describe the main function of these officers and how can H2 visa holders contact them?
So Jamaica prides itself on having a liaison service that takes over once the worker travels to the United States. So before they even leave Jamaica, each worker is told who is their liaison officer. They receive an orientation in terms of the expectations, even the weather, how to dress. You know, they're told about filing taxes. They're told everything here. But the liaison officer is their go-to person. The liaison officer visits the farm or the employer that they're employed with. They have all the contact information for the liaison officer assigned. So while we have our headquarters for the liaison service in Washington, we have workers right across the US, and therefore we have the liaison officers strategically placed right across so that they cover all the areas that we place workers. If there is any reason that a worker becomes concerned and needs information contact, the liaison officer is their first point of contact. And secondary contact would be coming back to us through our email lines that we have put up for the ministry. The liaison service deals with issues of even injuries. Unfortunately, some persons become injured, and there are also issues relating to their families. You know, you leave your parents here as workers, you leave your children, the spouses. The liaison service is there to ensure that if there's something that needs to be done urgently, they can communicate back to us here in Jamaica, because we have an entire unit called the Family Services Unit that reaches out through a set of social workers to the family. So we actually visit the families and we assist them with whatever needs to be done on behalf of that worker. So the liaison service is the place of safety, I want to call it, that protector of the right, decent work, and to ensure that all workers are actually engaged as they have been told prior to leaving Jamaica. And that is very important because their contracts, the wages, hours of work, all of those things, if there are any questions or concerns, the liaison service will answer those.
Thank you. I want to just confirm, does the liaison service geographically cover the entire United States, or are there specific states where there's focus?
I will say we aim to cover the entire United States.
Okay.
But unfortunately, you know, as it is, the numbers of liaison officers is not adequate to go to every single farm, every single employer. But I will say, yes, we cover because they are accessible. And if there is any need to reach an officer, if it is not physical, they can reach by the virtual means, the telephone conversations, and also they have the opportunity to use us as a support in the event that there is anything that requires the government of Jamaica to step in immediately. And we've had the issues, the hurricanes, people have to be evacuated.
Yes.
The liaison officers have done a very good
When
job.
workers are ill and, you know,
Yes.
you have to visit them at the
Yes, yes.
hospital. You know, every effort is made to ensure that that is done.
Yes.
Yes.
So I want to say, yes, we cover the entire United States in some form or another.
That's
So the liaison
excellent.
service does do that.
That's excellent to hear. So it's not just H2A workers that should reach out to the liaison
No, no,
office.
no.
H2B as well.
That's correct.
Okay. And their family members are also covered by the service if they travel as a derivative? Or is it only the employee that should make contact?
So the employee makes contact and they will indicate on behalf of the family member. But we do have family members, especially those here in Jamaica, that may make direct contact with us if it is that they're trying to reach their family member who has traveled on the program.
Thank you very much, Jillian. I appreciate it. So for those who are joining us later, remember you can look in the comment section on the streaming platform that you are watching to learn more about the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, the liaison service, as well as your Wilberforce rights if you travel to the United States to work temporarily. We are now going to switch over to our open Q&A session. So we have our first question coming in from Stacy on Facebook, and this one I'm going to address to Maureen. So Stacy's stating, can she apply for an H2 visa if she has a pending IV application?
Yes, you can apply for a non-immigrant visa while you have an immigrant visa pending. That is perfectly acceptable.
And Sandy from Instagram has a similar question. She's saying, can she apply for an H2 visa if she's been refused a tourist visa?
Yes, you can apply for an H2 visa even if you have been refused a tourist visa in the past. That should be no impediment. Of course, we have to look at each application individually, but that should not deter you from trying to apply for an H2A or H2B visa.
Thank you very much, Maureen. I think I'm going to direct this next one to the Ministry of Labor. Everton on YouTube wants to know if there's a cap on the number of times a person can participate in either the H2A or H2B program.
No. Usually though, you know, when our workers go, whether it's H2A or H2B, and they do very well, the employer request that they return to work. That's how it usually happens. So we don't put a cap on the number of times that a person can go and work on it. No.
And
so while there's no cap, usually workers travel up to age 70, but we have employers that have developed relationships that they're trusted workers and they want them to even come beyond age 70, and that is facilitated.
It's my understanding there's many H2A and H2B visa holders who successfully travel to the United States year after year and perform their work diligently
Very
and
much
contribute
so.
both to the U.S. and Jamaican economies.
Yes,
Definitely.
Thank you. So it sounds like beyond just getting this visa once and successfully applying once, it behooves participants in these worker programs to build a strong relationship with their employer and to build trust both with the employer and the Ministry of Labor back in Jamaica.
Yes.
And I think that we should say it in our own words as well, that the program, the image of the program depends on the worker. And we want workers to go over to the United States, work to the best of their ability, have good relations with themselves, amongst themselves as workers, and with their employer. Because what it does is to improve the image of Jamaica and give more opportunity for employers to see Jamaica as the best place to get their workers. And as Maureen said, the H2A agricultural does not have a quota, have a cap, and therefore Jamaica should have more workers traveling each year on their agricultural program, but this can only happen if each person in their individual community commits to ensuring that we protect the program, that we strengthen the program, and that we work together, that we have more persons with the opportunity to go and grow.
That makes sense. I think this next question from Dion on Instagram, I'll address to Maureen. How long can an H2B or H2A worker spend in the US?
When you receive your H2A or H2B visa, it will have an expiration date, and you will see there until when the petition is valid. And you enter the US, and Customs and Border Protection will give you a date that you're allowed to stay until. And that's actually a good point that Dion is bringing up, because it's important that once you are done with your program, even if it's before the expiration date of your visa or before when you were admitted until, it's very important to leave promptly and come back to Jamaica, because you don't want to stay, for example, for several months and maybe take up employment that is not authorized, because it will jeopardize your future opportunities to participate in the program. It is acceptable if you are done with your program and you're still within your time limit, that let's say you were in New York for 4 months and you want to visit family on your way back to Jamaica for a week in Miami. That is perfectly acceptable, as long as you are within your admit until date, is what we call it, when Customs and Border Protection stamps your passport and says until which day you can stay in the US.
So just a reminder to those applying, when you are at the interview window, that's not something the consular officer would be able to tell you how long you can stay or until which date. That is a decision made at the port of entry into the United States, and you should look at your passport after it's been stamped to see the date that's been entered there. We do have a question from Omar, and I'm gonna address it to Andrea. So Omar from Facebook wants to know if he can choose his employer or if an employer will be assigned to him.
Normally, we assign an employer. We assign an employer. When persons come onto the program, we place them with an employer. Well, it depends on how you're processed. Persons are lined up, and you're just automatically placed with an employer. You come into the program.
Okay. And is there any way to indicate preference for a particular sector or industry? How does that work?
Well, in terms of the sector, there are employers who may ask for certain types of skills. You know, an employer may prefer somebody who has a particular, say for somebody who may want to work with animals. An employer has animals and would prefer somebody with that. So we look for that person and we try to match that person with that employer.
Thank you,
To
Andrea.
ensure that everybody's happy.
That makes sense. We also have a question from Chrissy on YouTube, and I think I might open this up to both Maureen and the Ministry of Labor, but I'll start with Maureen. Chrissy wants to know, can she extend her employment while in the US?
People can apply for what's called an extension of stay. It is a process where you submit the application to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service in order to stay working in the US longer than the expiration date of your visa or longer than until you were admitted into the US by Customs and Border Protection. So it is possible, but you can't just stay. You have to apply for your extension of stay authorization.
And that application can take some time, right? So
Yes.
You shouldn't wait until the end of your authorized stay to start.
Correct.
Okay. And what about for the Ministry of Labor? Are there any issues if someone joins on an H2 program and then files to extend their employment? Does that comply with the requirements?
Well, it all depends on the employer
Okay.
and the contractual arrangement that is in place. It really depends on that. And then again, the immigration arrangement as well. You know, it all depends on that.
And the liaison service must know.
Right.
Okay.
They must know because they have the responsibility for the welfare of each worker while they're in the United States. So we do not want persons to be making their own arrangements and the liaison service is not aware. Because what the liaison service does is to ensure that whatever decisions they're trying to make is in keeping with the guidelines in terms of their visa requirements.
Right.
That makes sense. They probably encounter far more of these cases on a regular basis than that individual
Definitely.
ever will hear about. And so they are the subject matter experts when it comes to the actual Government of Jamaica Employment Program.
Right. So the liaison service is our representative for that worker while they're in the US. So they must communicate with the liaison service.
That makes sense. And thank you, Jillian. I do want to pose this question from Corinne on Facebook. She wants to know if women can work on the H2A program.
Yes, yes, it all depends on the opportunities. We know that there are challenges with housing because the employer has to provide housing for the H2 program. It's a requirement. So a lot of the challenges with getting females on the program is with respect to the provision of housing. But females are placed on the H2 program, on the H2A program as well.
Yes, and
You know, that is one of the most popular questions. We have so many workers that are women wanting to go on the farm work program. And they say, but we have been selected and we haven't left. And Andrea pointed to it because majority of the jobs that we're getting, the employers may say what specifically they want, and they may indicate the kinds of tasks that are to be done, etc. So we do have women travel, but we do not have as many women as men traveling. And I would say also that the women that have traveled, they are so excited about the program and they work very well. I don't know that we have many fallouts of the women at all that travel.
We have a number of ladies who go to the US and they do very well each year.
Yes,
And
they
if
do.
I
In
might
fact,
add-
they're called back by their employer to return most of the time, yes, all of them.
And if I may add that US law would prohibit any kind of discrimination based on gender or age, sexual orientation, et cetera, religion. And so, like Jillian says, there may be specific tasks that a worker needs to be able to comply with in order to participate in the program. But on the mere fact that you are a woman or of a certain religion or whatever other identifying characteristic, you wouldn't be able to be excluded from the program because of US law.
That's correct.
Nor is it legal for it to be considered at any point during the adjudication of your visa application. So the consular officer interviewing you is interviewing every individual with the same equal and fair treatment, regardless of their own personal protected category background. I do want to continue to clarify something that was said. Is housing provided for H2A and H2B applicants or just agricultural workers?
Just H2A. The employer has a responsibility to provide housing for the H2A worker.
Okay.
With the H2B arrangement, the employer works that out with the worker. You know, they work that out between them in terms of the housing. Usually, housing is there, and how it is paid for is worked out between the worker and the employer. But under the H2A arrangement, housing has to be in place, provided by the employer.
Do successful applicants know the details about their housing before they depart Jamaica for the US?
Well, Miss Scholar spoke about the orientation program that we have at the ministry, and we tell our guys, we talk to our ladies, we let them know what arrangement is in place of housing before they go.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Speaking about H2Bs, Trudy Ann from Facebook wants to know what type of work is available on the H2B program.
Well, we mentioned some of this before. Hospitality work, you know, you work in a hotel, you work as a chef, you probably work in the kitchen as a waiter, even as a spa attendant, you know, you give massages, even maintenance workers, Some of them are classified as H2B.
Yeah.
You have landscapers being classified as H2B as well. If you work in a restaurant as well, in a kitchen, you know,
drivers as well.
right, you know, those, as you said before, Maureen, in an amusement park facility, you know, like that. That sort of, those types of jobs are what are available under the H2B program.
And if Trudy Ann wants to, you know, read about more details about what kind of work is available, that can be found on the Ministry of Labor's website?
Yes.
So Trudy Ann, if you're listening and others who are curious about these details, remember to visit mlss.gov.jm and you can find that link in the comments wherever you are listening and watching for more information if you want to learn more beyond what you're hearing here today. We also have questions from the audience asking whether college students can work on the H2B or H2A programs.
Well, we have no challenges with that. As long as they qualify, as long as they qualify.
But primarily, the college student would have to be in school at certain times, which may make the H2A and B prohibitive for them to do both work and school. So the J1 program,
right, usually
the cultural exchange program, is what many of them go on.
Right.
That makes sense.
Because that takes place mainly in the summer, you know, when they're off. So, but otherwise, I mean, if they qualify and, you know, they can go, we have no objections, you know.
Could I say a word about the J1 program? So the J1 program that they're mentioning is an exchange visitor visa program. And on the list of authorized agencies from the Ministry of Labor, you'll even see the types of visas that they're authorized to help with. So some are H2Bs, others are Js, some are just one or the other.
Yes.
And so the J1 exchange visitor program is also for different types of jobs. It's everything from au pairs, which is a live-in babysitter, nanny program. So that's one type. Some people work at hotels or other jobs. Some J1s, to confuse matters, are to actually study in the US as an exchange visitor. So there's a whole range of different jobs. You can be a camp counselor. So that might be something attractive for a college student because they would have off, let's say, part of June and all of July and August. And the US is in great need of camp counselors. So maybe you go and you're a lifeguard or you work at the camp teaching how to ride a bike. There's lots of different ways that you can work. In
Many
the
of them work in the amusement parks as well.
Yes, that as well. Yes.
If you've ever dreamed of seeing one of the many amusement parks that we have in the United States, it's a great way to experience it. I know I have many friends from other countries who've participated in that program and have really enjoyed the friendships and work experience that they obtained during that time. I do want to note that we have about 2 minutes remaining in the show. So I will save 2 last questions and then we'll conclude. So we have Samantha from Instagram asking whether she can still apply for an H2B visa if she's been denied for an H2A.
Yes, you can still apply. If you were denied the H2A and you haven't had a visa authorized since then you will definitely need an interview. But yes, people can apply for different types of visas within different categories. And some people do actually go up on an H2A, but then maybe the next time they apply for an H2B. And so, yes, it's perfectly fine to try again.
Yes, and for those watching right now, please remember that each visa application is evaluated individually and is not necessarily connected in any way to other applications. So, for example, if you've successfully traveled to the United States as an H2A worker, that doesn't mean necessarily that you would automatically be granted a B1, B2 tourist visa into the United States, because the purpose of travel behind that visa issuance is different in each of those applications. Finally, I'll finish with our last question. And I'm going to combine two that we have from the audience into one, and I'll address it to Andrea. So Samantha from Instagram and It's from Facebook are asking, sorry, Melly from and It's from Facebook are asking if H2B program accepts new workers or only returning workers, and do H2B workers need prior work experience?
Well, yes, we do accept new and returning workers. A lot depends on what the employer is really looking for. So we are guided by that in respect of, you know, whether it's new or returning. What was the second part of the question?
The second one is, do you need prior work experience in order to do it?
For some areas, definitely. If you want to go and work as a chef, for example, it's important that you have some experience. We usually ask for at least 2 years experience if you're coming to work as a chef, and you can understand why you would need it. For areas like housekeeping and waitressing and so forth, you probably need maybe a year or less, you know, for those areas. And again, we tend to work very closely with the employer in respect of those you know, the experience required. But as Jillian had said before, this is Jamaica. Employers, I mean, when they come here to recruit, they normally go to the destination areas, the Montego Bay, the Ocho Rios, and so they have no problems in getting workers who have the experience that they require. We have so many workers coming to the recruitment centers to be interviewed and so forth. So we have so many workers. The challenge is to pick the best workers. That is usually the challenge.
Thank you. That makes sense. We want the best workers to come to the United States. We are proud of our relationship and working arrangement with the Ministry of Labor. We are reaching the conclusion of our show today. So I'll start by thanking Jillian Carotis, the Divisional Director of Industrial Relations and Allied Services, and Andrea Miller-Stennett, the Director of Manpower Services, both joining us from the Ministry of Labor and Social Services today. Thank you both for coming. Maureen Smith, our Deputy Consul General, for joining us here again from previous shows as well. And I want to do a little bit of an advertisement pitch for our next show, which will be taking place on February 21st at 1 p.m. You can follow us always at US Embassy JA on X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us today on our first Consular Conversations live session of 2024. This concludes the H2 visa program session, and we look forward to talking to you about the Federal Voters Assistance Program next time, February 21st. Thank you.